From the Retool Studio in Boulder, Colorado, I'm George Thomas. Very happy to have a mid-season report as road racing starts to wrap up. Hard to say that with the U.S. Pro Challenge coming here to Colorado, but really want to talk about cyclocross today, and happy to have from the Bicycle Racing Association, we're going to call that BRAC from here on out, Chris McGee.
Hey George, thanks for having me again.
Good to have you.
Hey, yeah, a lot of excitement going on. We're really looking forward to this year's cross season. I really think it's going to be the best cross season in the history of Colorado. We've been seeing a good 10% growth every year for the last 3 years, and this year with Nationals coming to Valmont here in Boulder in January, we've got the perfect way to set up a full season. So really excited.
Cross, I mean, I'm old, so cross was really a November, December, January sport. August seems so early. Here it is August 1st.
And talking about it. We've been trying not to talk about it for months because people are interested in it and want to know what's happening and the direction and all the scheduling and everything. So we've been putting all that together. We do have a great August on the road still. You know, we've got great local events coming up. The state championships for seniors and juniors, the Pro Challenge, which will be incredible this year, year 3. There's even a women's only race this year in Fort Collins to go with the Pro Challenge. We finished road with the Steamboat Stage Race, and then we've got midweek time trials. But you know, really the focus right now for a lot of our members is cyclocross, and just really looking forward to what this year's going to bring.
And with cyclocross coming up, BRAC actually got a sponsor for cyclocross series.
Yeah, for our Cross Cup. So for the first time ever, we've got a presenting sponsor for the Colorado Cross Cup. And we're lucky enough today to be joined by Garrett White from Nationwide Insurance, will be a presenting sponsor. So thank you for coming down.
Yeah, thanks Chris.
Garrett,
thanks George.
Have a seat.
Why cyclocross, and how do you associate that with insurance?
So kind of the pitch that we had as a company is a growth model for Colorado. And me being a former professional cyclist, coming back into the area, my goal was to get involved with cycling in any capacity, and how I could get my company to get involved as well and create a mutual relationship in between both parties where everyone benefits. It's great for the BRAC, it's great for us, it's just great press, and we're happy to be a part of it.
So how did you guys connect?
Garrett reached out.
Yeah.
He's been
That's always the best.
you know, it wasn't a hard chase, you know.
Yeah.
I think Garrett really, personally, with his background as being a top-level athlete, and then just seeing what we do here in Colorado and our ability to connect with a lot of different folks, I think it really lined up for him and for Nationwide. And we're really excited because we're going to be able to use this sponsorship as an investment really into the series, to elevate the sport yet again here in Colorado, to provide some consistency on how courses look with tape and fencing. We're going to provide cash prizes for Senior Men Open and Senior Women Open for the overall for the first time. Help the promoters by saving them money on these supplies, and also with our pre-J events that we do at every weekend cross race. We'll be paying the permits for those this year, which is another way to save a couple bucks for all of our event directors. So really excited about it.
Is this something you're doing just for this season? Have you thought long term, 2 seasons, 3?
This is good. Hopefully it's going to be a long-term deal.
Okay.
And the pitching point for us too is that all ACA members now are going to be able to get discounts.
You mean BRAC member?
BRAC, yeah. Sorry, old school.
Yeah.
No, but everyone's going to be eligible for discounts through Nationwide Insurance. It is a listed group, so you just let the agents know, or whoever you're dealing with at Nationwide, and you're going to get 5% off your policy just by being a BRAC member.
And that's one of the things we're always trying to do, as well as tie all of our relationships we have and leverage that for the benefit of our membership. And so it's neat when all the pieces really come together like to have on this relationship. So.
I'd actually like to sit down and just have a show with you about sponsorship, because that's such a big issue for events, as we'll find out as we bring Lance in, and also for teams. What do you look for from the Cup for Nationwide Insurance? What do you see yourself getting out of this?
Realistically, it's a branding opportunity for us. We get out and let people know, hey, we're in your community. We care about you as cyclists. It's a group that we're passionate about. I'm passionate about it. And you know, there hasn't been that relationship before in this member group, or I think even nationally. So it's new ground for us. It allows us to create something completely organic and something exciting and fun where both parties have say in what's going on. And if it's something that works, we'll keep doing it. If it's something that doesn't work, we can scrap it and start over, because it's something that's never been done before, which is awesome.
Yeah, we were talking about this being a 30-minute show, but forget that.
We'll edit it out.
I want to talk.
Edit out my ums a little bit.
Well, you have a great personality to associate with cyclocross. Dave Toll was kind of known as the voice of cycling, but Larry Grossman has just been fantastic. I've heard him at some races, and you're fortunate enough to have him throughout the season. Larry Grossman?
Better known as LG. I mean, nobody knows who Larry
Larry
is.
Grossman.
Hey, Larry.
Good to see you
Thanks
guys.
for coming down.
Larry, thank you very much.
You bet. It's good to be here.
How'd you get into announcing?
Pretty simple question to answer. I actually got into a little bit of small race promoting up in Eagle, Colorado, where I still live, and pretty much ran it as a one-man show. Got the venue together, got some marketing out there, limited amount of marketing, and needed an announcer, so decided just to do it all myself. And from there, did some other local stuff, Vail Town Series races, mountain bike series up in the Vail Valley. Started doing some of those races. That eventually moved into what used to be called the Teva Mountain Games. They asked me to come and do some mountain bike stuff with them and also get involved with their road bike time trial. And did that for a couple of years. From there, I got some breaks and some a little bit of support from Dave Toll, actually, down here on the Front Range. And when Dave moved on up into bigger events and wasn't available and actually left the area, he became a pretty big force behind me, recommending me for races. But basically, that's kind of how it got started. And then I just embraced the Front Range cyclocross racing as a rider that would come down and race almost every weekend. We would come down from Eagle to race and just loved the scene. We came down primarily just to have a good time racing cross, which is what it's all about for many of us. And from there, I was fortunate enough to start announcing, and people liked the job I did. And I really embrace the entire day of cyclocross and what it stands for, what it means having a career as kind of a mid-level, mediocre racer with a couple of pretty successful days along the way. I think I have a very good understanding of what the racers go through out there. Every day they line it up to race, and the amount of courage it takes to step up to the line in a cross race, especially down here on the Front Range. It's super competitive, a lot of fun, and a great social activity as well. And I think I have a pretty good understanding of what goes on out there. Over the years, I've been able to recognize certain racer tendencies, personalities, learn more about the individuals, and of course, my number one priority as a racer is to recognize sponsors. Thanks for being on board this year.
You're welcome.
And then secondly, to recognize every racer I can, which can be hard to do, but it's really important to call every name you can when racers come by and recognize them.
And that was my big question for you was, I mean, it's obvious your love for the sport, your knowledge of the sport comes through because you're really calling the race. But what I noticed right off the bat was that you were calling the racers. How much research do you have to put in on a specific field to know who's actually out there, or have you gotten to the point where you just know everybody?
It's a combination of everything. The more racing you see, and you have to pay attention. You're not just calling names of people going around in circles out on the cross course. You have to pay attention to what's going on out there, and after a while I'll learn where racers are likely to attack, who's strong at the end of races, who likes to start. You know, a rider like Darren Cheek, for instance, always likes to start slow, but you know he's going to come on, towards the end of the race. So observe, but then last year I threw out kind of a blanket email to as many people as I could to get some anecdotes about racers and just have them send me information. A guy like John Manziel, one of our Masters rider, who nobody would ever know was a rodeo cowboy and a professional boxer for a while. So, that kind of stuff, if I can get information, I dig deep, when I'm talking to racers, trying to find out stuff about them so I can throw that out there. It's stuff people should know about because it's interesting. It's not just about riding bikes around in circles.
Don't get in a fight with John Manziel.
Yeah, John Manziel will take you out. I want him on my side of the bar fight.
What we really have with Larry is kind of the voice of our cycling community. I mean, he knows the people, he knows the players, he knows what we're doing, he knows the structure of the season, he knows really how we're trying to support our membership, whether you're the top end of the sport here in the country, which is guys we have, or totally new to it. And that's what we do as an organization, is try to offer that experience for everybody. And so, Larry, you bring in his perspective with these racers. It's just a huge plus to what people experience out there.
Yeah, and I think it's really important. The sport has grown tremendously. Cyclocross, we're talking about, in the past 5, 6 years, 7 years. And from my perspective, it's great to talk about race leaders all the time, but it's also very important to recognize new riders that are out there struggling around the course, and give them the support as well, so they feel like coming out and racing more. And and it is an amazing social scene. The day of cyclocross, it's like no other, and looking forward to getting it going.
Yeah, 1 month.
It's crazy.
For another perspective, Chris Case from Velo News. Thanks for joining us.
Sure. Thank you.
Chris, see you.
See you.
Haven't seen you in a week.
All right.
Appreciate you coming out.
Thank you.
And Chris is also on our board of directors, which is, he comes with an invaluable perspective from industry knowledge, working with media, kind of knows everything that's happening in the sport, and then also he's an accomplished racer himself. So brings in that elite athlete perspective into the board conversations, which we really try to make sure we're serving the needs of different level athletes. So that's a little extra intro on Chris.
I'll happily have you speak with Chris more about the board. I'm really fascinated in how media has changed. How has cyclocross changed media and reporting on cycling? And also, I love multi-part questions that you should be taking notes. I'll just ask it later.
Okay. Who should I talk to first here?
Straight to the camera.
Well, I know, but who's going to be asking me
I turn
questions?
my head too much and show off the bald spot.
That's all I got.
Go ahead and address the board. That'd actually be
Okay.
great.
Well, I came on board because Chris sought out, I think, perspective from someone racing at a high level, and we had crossed paths before, so I got on the board. It's almost coming up on 2 years ago, and I'm going to be continuing on for another 2 years, and that's been an very interesting process. Seeing, it's the first board I've sat on, so that in itself was a learning experience, and to see the nuances of how things are talked about as a group, and how much time is spent behind the scenes that goes into making decisions and hopefully making a better racer experience. We try to keep the sausage making to a minimum, or expose it, to a minimum, and we hope that it goes out into the public world and it just makes for better racing. And so
We want that sausage.
Well,
But you don't want to see how it's
You
made.
can also
that's the
bake
part.
it
That's
too.
the part. Excuse the analogy. It's not the best. We hope that we're not making sausage. We're hoping we're making some gourmet meal. Perhaps is a better analogy. But so yeah, that's just a little bit on the board, and every time we meet, we talk about smaller things, the larger vision of what the board wants to do. Looking towards the future, and there's plenty to discuss. So yeah.
Now let's get into media.
Media. Well, yeah, I started as managing editor of Velo, the magazine. We have the website and the magazine now. Velo is the magazine, and I'm the managing editor of the magazine. And I've been there since last April, so a year and a half as well, or more. It's interesting. Our readership, are diehard European peloton racing fans, and of course, cyclocross is booming in the U.S. It's always been popular in Europe. It continues to grow over there. Our coverage of it, it's been interesting as a title. Certainly on our website, we have a lot of flexibility in what we cover. If we have feet on the ground at a race, we're going to cover it. If we don't, we'll hire freelancers. It's very easy to get content on our website. We have to pick and choose for the magazine, and over the years, we've gone from having a lot of mountain bike coverage in the magazine to not being able to have as much. Cyclocross has come into the fold now, and we have done, in the past few years, we've done season preview issues incorporating the USGP guide. Unfortunately, the USGP isn't a series anymore, but the growth continues. Hopefully, most, if not all, of those races will continue at that high level. And it's just we're always navigating a new sort of not only racing landscape but media landscape, which comes down to money and ad sales and all of those other factors that come together when we're putting together a magazine, which is a finite number of pages based on, money.
So something Larry was saying, participatory as far as cyclocross goes. Do you report on cyclocross races different than maybe you do on road racing? And try to include more people?
Yeah, I think the being able to capture more voices from a cyclocross race and a cyclocross scene is a lot easier. Even at the highest level, it's just a more relaxed place to be. Race day, Tour de France is one of the most stressful places to be as a rider and as someone in media, but cyclocross races, even at the highest level in the US, and it's not hard for people to finish their race and just be wanting to relax. Jeremy Powers, Ryan Trebone, they're all just like we love the sport because it's so relaxed. They love it because afterwards they're having beers and hanging out with their friends. It's a party like that. So in terms of covering it, yeah, we talk to a lot more people. It's because there's not as much dynamic racing going on out there. There's some team aspect to it. There's some team element to it. There's certainly some strategy and tactical maneuvering going on any given race day, but it's just 60 minutes of it. It's not over 5 hours. It's not a stage race. So we cover it slightly differently. It's more moment to moment recap and not so much analysis, though there's always some of that. So yeah.
And to get the race promoter's perspective, I want to bring in Lance Panaguti more than a race a week. So definitely out there.
No, thanks for having me. Good to see you guys.
See you.
Nice meeting you.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Lance, always a pleasure.
You bet.
Chris, Lance, we had you on face to face and didn't come to blows. Johnny Manziel didn't have to be there.
Yeah, you guys on opposite sides here. Don't worry.
How has the season been going for you this year? Have you seen any changes from last year? And Chris, same. And like I say,
Yeah, I'll let Chris go first, and then I'll come in on the cyclocross aspect.
Yeah, the basic number is our 2013 road season has been pretty much the exact same on participation as 2012, which is saying something because that was a record year for participation. So we're looking to hit those numbers again this year. As in the last 3 or 4 years, Lance and Tony are a big part of that success. They're the #1 race event director team here in Colorado for bicycle racing, and their contributions are huge. They bring a level of professionalism and consistency to our events that, as we've been in a growth stage for a long time, well before I was a part of this, it's been on an upward trend. And there's a lot of changes that have to take place to manage that growth. And one of those is having professional companies who can take on these roles on incredibly busy race days. So that's kind of where we are right now, and then poised for cyclocross this fall. I think we're all optimistic that this will be just a booming cyclocross season. The enthusiasm, the excitement's completely already charged up, and we've got a great calendar that's being published this week, and we're going back and forth with all the promoters, making sure we got all the names right, the dates, the venues. There's a couple of last-minute venue changes always, and but just really excited to have all this out there before our first weekend of cross, which is on our calendar is the 7th and 8th of September. We've got nothing before Labor Day. Lance and Tony are doing a little bit of an experiment with cross before that, and kind of see how that goes. There's a lot of room in the sport for growth and innovation, and different ways to engage athletes, and that's really what we're talking about, is engaging and retaining athletes, and cross is one of the best disciplines for that in general. So
Yeah, no, for us, road season was great. I mean, we always love road season because it kicks off the year. We're fresh, and we got 50 events on our plate, so we get to kick it off with road, and we're gearing up and excited to go. Come August, it's, oh man, another race, another weekend. But road season, we saw 5% growth outside of the highway tech issue with the Morgul Bismarck. Everything was super smooth. Racers loved it, and every year we try to take a different focus and try to kick things up just a little bit and say, all right, what did we do well last year? Now, how do we build on that and do it a little bit better this year? And for the Morgul, it was colored numbers. I mean, simple things like having colored race numbers to separate out the categories on the road. Chip timing for the TT and the road race, where we timed that wall segment of the race. And it was those little pieces that, to me, took the races up to a little level, another level. And then next year, we're already kind of scouting things out and sketching up, all right, what did we do well this year? What can we improve on for next year? And it's the same focus we've taken with Cross. And we've had Larry announce for a couple years now. And he's kind of seeing, all right, those subtle changes year to year. And haven't talked to him about it yet this year, but he's going to see even more changes this year. I think the biggest thing is we were fortunate a couple years ago to take over Boulder Racing from Brian Hutzlinski. And we had 5 Boulder Cyclocross Series events, and we had 2 Cyclo X races. And there was a lot of confusion in the local scene of, where's Brian? Who are these new guys? Do they put on all these races? Do they put on these? What's the cohesion between the races? So for us this year, we said, you know what? One series. Let's take the Boulder Cyclocross Series, merge it with the Cyclo X Series, and have one 7-race series. And I think the important thing to note for Garrett and Chris is that series operates within the Cross Cup. It's not separate from the Cross Cup. It operates under the umbrella of the Cross Cup. And one thing we've always talked about is if the Cross Cup elevates its status, it elevates the status of our races. And vice versa. If we keep elevating the status of our races, it does nothing but enhance the overall Cross Cup as well.
Yeah, the cyclocross in the state is booming. It is at a very high level. You can see it, just the production values, the way the courses lay out, the amenities for families and kids, like all the little pieces that go into making a real event instead of a bike race are very different than they were 3 or 4 or 5 years ago. And it's just really an amazing thing to be a part of. And obviously having these guys who are committed to improvement, growth, really looking at this in a long-term perspective of here's where we are year 1, year 2, year 3. Obviously we work well together and we have the same goals. We want to grow and improve racing here in Colorado.
Is that increased professionalism one of the reasons that you were able to bring sponsorship to the sport?
Oh, absolutely. And I think, as part of, putting on a race, we have a full team of, employees that can be used as volunteers for those races, have a kiosk at the event, and, just add a little more value that way as well. So, we have 20 employees, we have 5 agents as well, and everyone's on board with this all the way up to the VP level of our company.
I think Chris could comment too. It's not just a race anymore. 10 years ago, Cross, you showed up, you raced for 45 minutes, you go home. Now it's that whole day experience. And it's kind of what we try to take from the triathlon world of having the big expo, having the nationwide kiosk, having Larry engage the spectators as well as the racers too. Because you don't just come for 45 minutes. A lot of people come for 5 hours now.
Yeah, because the stakeholders are engaged throughout the day. Officials, volunteers, directors, voices, sponsors, administrators, we're all working towards the same long-term picture of this needs to be fun, it needs to be great, it needs to incorporate your families, it needs to make it just kind of a worthwhile experience you're going to keep coming back for, and that's really where the retention comes from.
And because it's an experience, you see those bigger sponsors starting to come into the sport. I mean,
Right.
The Cyclo X Series this year, title sponsor is Shimano. Shimano had traditionally been triathlon road sponsor, but they're starting to look at cyclocross now.
Just the camera.
And they're saying, you know what, we're a local company. They treat themselves like a Colorado company with offices right here in Louisville, and they said, we would need to be in the cyclocross space. It's growing too quickly, and it's too engaging because it's mountain bikers, it's triathletes, it's roadies all coming together. That's our market now.
Larry, what's your year like? I mean, Lance is obviously wanting to use you. Other directors would want you. There's multiple events on the same weekend. How do you choose where you're going to go?
Up to this point, I've stayed loyal to people that have used me in the past, and I'll have conflicting interests on certain dates. But if Lance is going to have me announce 7 races, then I'm going to announce Lance's 7 races. And also from my point of view, I don't look at it as just a day of racing. I look at it as how it's organized and how well it's run. And one of the really nice things about working for Lance, not just from my perspective, but from the racers as well, is when they show up, they know what they're getting that day. They know what the product is. They know where registration is. They know awards are going to be done on time, immediately after protest periods are over, and that's all really important stuff. And especially from my point of view, it just makes my day a lot easier. I don't have racers in my face all day asking me, when are we doing awards? What was my time? Where did I finish? They get results up immediately. Awards are done quickly. I mean, those are the races that I want to announce. So basically, again, you know, I stick to this point. My loyalty is to the people that I've been working with so far. I have open dates here and there. The goal is to be working every single weekend, every single day on the microphone eventually. But for now, that's kind of how I pick and choose.
Chris, sort of the same question. How do you decide which events to cover?
For Velo,
Mm-hmm.
At our level, it's who shows up at those big races, and last year it was easy. The GPs, certainly, we were going to cover all of them. We were going to have people on the ground for those, and this year it's a little unknown at the moment. I'm sure that we'll see pretty soon status of some of these races if they're able to return, but again, they're up against money issues to see if they can get the sponsors to support a race at the level they did in the series and have it exist without the series. So it's we don't know yet which races we'll be going to. We're pretty fluid too. We can make decisions pretty quickly, and if something pops up, you know, and everybody decides, oh, we're going to go to that race, all the best pros, then that's where we're going to go. So we just keep it open, keep our schedules open.